Investors Live. And today we're talking about kind of investment profile, which is how do I get started? A lot of times when you start, you're just excited, right? And that's why you are starting in real estate. And that's why you get into real estate is because you hear a speaker, you read a book, you get inspired. You're like, I know I need to invest. Yet when all of us start, we don't think about our starting as a investor profile, right? What is my investor profile? And like, I'm not even an investor. So to call myself an investor when I've never done a deal, it almost seems like, oh my God, am I basically, faking it until I make it, or am I just making it up? Those are the feelings that a lot of times people have. And I was at the same place. We all start the same place. But we're going to show you today, how do you start, right? What do you think about? What are the questions you should be asking yourself? And how do you set yourself up in a winning position? And what is that win? To me, the win has to be defined as, how do I get to a minimum of making $5,000 a month in terms of income from real estate? Now, it can be active income, meaning you may do flips, and let's just say it takes you 6 months to do a flip. So every month, if you're making $5,000, took 6 months, then that flip is $30,000. So if you have a job, you do that on the side, it's success. If you're going to build up rentals, then if you have 5,000 in month, in fact, I'd be happy initially. My initial goal was to get to about 3,000 a month. I'm like, if I can have it 3,000 a month, I'm winning, right? So how do we get there? What does the profile look like? Before we do that, we have something fun today. So as all of you guys know, Lori happens to be an integral part of our business, and it happens to be her birthday. And so we're all today on the live, as well as everybody that's watching from Mastery. We thought we would make it something special, and we have a beautiful cake for her here today. So we thought, why not acknowledge what she does for all of us, not only for the business, but for all of us as a group. So, Lori, a very happy birthday for you. All the balloons I put up, the cake I got. So for everything, I get the thing for it. So where's you guys got all of that. Where's the knife? So, anyways, Lori, any words you want to share with the audience?
No, I'm speechless right now.
You're speechless right now? Okay. All right. So,
Let's sing.
So happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lori. Happy birthday to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Happy birthday. Yeah.
I'm live.
Okay, you're supposed to cut the cake.
Yeah.
One cake?
Yeah.
It wasn't just for you.
Why not?
All right. So everybody in Mastery, we're gonna have birthday cake on the weekend.
Perfect.
Happy birthday.
Not the stale one. We'll get a fresh one. So, yep. All right, great. So thank you for everybody for celebrating Lori's birthday with us. For everybody that is already a part of Work Cash Flow Investors, happy to have you here. For everybody else, bring your family, bring your friends, other people that want to learn about real estate. 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we do the lives. And the whole point of the lives is to either address some questions, talk about what's going on in real estate, or do something like we're talking about today is what can we do to help you get started on the right foot? So we were talking about how do you get started? So when you're getting started, and this is where kind of what I'm basing my talk on today is where I started. Also based on, we have about 1,300 people today in Mastery. And out of the 1,300 people, right, 20%, God couldn't get them to do anything. So I'm just a mere mortal, right? But yet we have an extremely, extremely high amount of success rate, because if you take kind of the top 20% and put them aside, and you take the rest, we have a good 60 to 75% of people that we can get them to act. And we can get them to act, I mean, that they have either 1 or 2 properties already done. Now, you take a lot of people that own a lot of properties in mastery, that's very different. But where do we get them started, and what is a success pattern? So what we're going to talk about today is based on that how do we get them going? So whenever somebody initially shows up to mastery, what we're trying to find out is, okay, who are you? That is what we call your investor profile, meaning where are you coming from? And it doesn't matter what your failures have been or what your successes have been. We just want to know where you are. We're not judging you based on where you've been, but we want to know where you are. And based on where you are, what is your goal? Like, is the goal $2,000 a month, $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month? Right? Some people come in with a substantial income. They're like, hey man, I need to replace a minimum of $20,000 a month in net income, right? Net income we're talking about, or 30 or 40 or 50. Like, so today the goal has gone up quite a bit, but where do you start? So when you start and when you think about real estate, and even if you are somebody that already has 5, 6, 10 properties, or you've done a bunch of flips, just think about it from this perspective. What if you could break down? Let's say last year you had a full-time job and you made X amount of dollars, whatever you made, right? At your full-time job, suddenly you're probably not going to get a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 raise, right? That's probably not going to happen year over year. But in real estate, you can do that for yourself, right? If you're doing flips or if you're doing wholesales, you're doing Airbnbs, you're doing rentals, you can do that. So how do you start? So the first thing you have to look at, what we call is, so we fill out a business questionnaire, which is your investor profile, meaning my name is such and such. I have a spouse, her name is such and such, or no, I'm single, whatever the case may be. I have 1 child or 2 child. I'm 55 years old, whoever you are. Now, why do we know that, and why is it important for you to think about if you're watching this from home? It's important to think about is because when somebody is 55 years old and they come to us, they're like, hey, I'm here because I want to better my place in real estate, or I want to better my financial life, right? What we want is not just if they say, well, we want to do flips, right? We're not going to say, okay, great, we're going to teach you flips. What our job is this, that if people come to us, our job is to help them build a blueprint or a business plan to get to a place where the first goal is 5,000 in income. Now, ideally, I would want it to be income from cash flow rather than earned income. Earned income being if you're doing wholesales, earned income being if you're doing flips. That's your earned income. Wholesale income, cash flow income is going to be from your midterm rentals, Airbnbs, from your long-term rental properties, right? So that takes a little bit longer. That'll take about a year or so, year and a half or so. From flips, you can do it in about 6 to 7 months, or from wholesales even quicker. So why it's important is what we want to figure out is if somebody says, Andrew, my profile is of somebody that I am an engineer. If you're an engineer and that's what you do and you have a good rewarding career that you may want to get out of, but you have worked all these years to get there and you're 55 years old, for you to suddenly say that, hey, I have a salary, let's say, of $160,000, I'm going to replace it because I'm so super excited with real estate tomorrow, that's not going to be realistic, right? We're going to say, hey, listen, you got to take a step-by-step approach to get there. So if you look at Farah, you look at Rahul, you look at, literally hundreds of people from Mastery that today don't need a job or have already transitioned full-time to real estate. That was a process. They couldn't just go and quit what they did. So that's one investor profile, which is a busy professional profile. So if you're anybody that has a job, or you have a small business that you run, or you're a self-employed individual and you're 30, 40, 50 hours a week is being taken up by that particular pursuit. So you may be a doctor, you may be an engineer, you may be a plumber, you may be an Uber driver. Really doesn't make any difference, but what are you doing? You have a certain set amount of time that brings a certain amount of income in, right? If that's you, then you have to categorize yourself as a busy professional. Now, the next category is going to be and that's called your profile, right? Second category is going to be somebody like, let's just say me. me at the age of 32 was a individual who was in real estate. I was a real estate agent, so I was connected with the business, obviously, in an intimate way. If you're a loan officer, if you're somebody who's a title agent, you're in the real estate business and you're self-employed, right? Now, for you, what you have to think about is, hey, this is my business. This is where I earn a living. Does it make sense for me to take on another job, which is do another flip, right? Or do wholesales, because that would be another job. Or is it more productive for me to keep selling real estate and I'm going to do real estate investing on the side, right? So that's the other kind of people. Generally, people who are W-2 people, generally, I'm not saying all of them, generally, if they're W-2 people and if they're used to being able to follow a structured approach, right? If we write out a structured business plan for them, their success rate is much better. If you look at people who have, and I'm not talking about gurus, right? I am not talking about gurus who are on social media today, who are on TikTok and all that kind of stuff, or people who make great. Those people have a different skill set, right? But people, if you look at the everyday person, because most of you and I are everyday people, right? I don't have the kind of skill set to be great on TikTok. Do we do some social media? Great. Yes, we do. Right? But that type of skill set is a different skill set. And some people have it and some people don't. That does not mean that you and I cannot succeed, right? You and I can succeed at an exceptionally high level. But we need some basic characteristics, right? So if I use mastery as an example, so about 1,300 people, close to 19,000 plus properties owned today, just in the Chicagoland area. So if you look at per person productivity out of mastery is extremely high, right? I mean, it's going to be at the 1% of real estate ownership level. If you look at that. Why? Because we attract and we train and we kind of basically coach people who tend to be fairly conservative in terms of their investing, in terms of their thinking, and they have a very logical step-by-step approach towards investing. So for somebody who's a busy professional, for somebody who's self-employed like I was, and the third category of person is the Mr. Entrepreneur. They've watched way too many videos on YouTube. They've listened to way too many podcasts. They're a lot of times, a lot of entrepreneurs are dysfunctional at best. And I know some people are going to take offense to what I'm saying right now, but I'm just telling you what a lot of entrepreneurs are. They're extremely dysfunctional individual. And dysfunctional doesn't mean they're bad. What dysfunctional means is this: they have a lot of ideas. So as it gets later and later and later in the day, the idea factory in their head multiplies at a very high rate. And ask me how I know. I'm one of those, right? That as it gets later, my brain starts working at a very high pace, right? And what happens is this: they have a very vivid imagination, and they come up with a lot of ideas. The problem with that situation is this: and ideas, guys, are dime a dozen, right? I mean, there's a lot of ideas for a lot of widgets all over the place, right? We all have had some genius ideas. We just didn't implement them. And that applies to all of us as a group, right? And what I'm saying is this: a lot of times people who at a younger age or older age or middle age, they have this notion of entrepreneurship. They're setting themselves up for a failure, because if you look back in their life history, they jump from one thing to another, to another, to another, to another, because they're the person who's basically chasing the bright and shiny object all the time. And we see that profile of individual in real estate all the time. We meet them all the time, right? You ask them to do, hey, why don't you do this, right? Because this is better for your profile. No, but Andrew, I'm just going to go big. Well, but why would you want to go big, man? It's too risky. You're not ready for that risk yet. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying that maybe do step 1 and then do step 3 and 4. Don't try to jump to step 3 and 4 all at once, because you're going to put yourself in a very challenging position. That's my take all the time, right? So when you're thinking about who you are, you have to think of yourself as what is my business profile? Am I a busy individual, self-employed, that I want to transition out of this? For me, I was self-employed. I was an entrepreneur. quote unquote, since I was a kid, at least I thought of myself as that. And I had not necessarily succeeded in anything. At one point, I got a gas station that was very successful. And then as you guys know, somebody drove into it. But it's not that I had exceptionally succeeded at everything, but I had a lot of ideas. So when I got into real estate sales, I had to basically just say to myself that, hey, listen, I'm broke, right? This is my reality. I'm going to have to figure out a way to make some money so I can make a living before I can basically be a multimillionaire, right? Because first thing is I got to figure out how to make a living at least, right? And then I'm going to build a lifestyle. And so a lot of times I had to, for years, curb my ideas and curb all the crazy things that were going on because I was getting ready. It's not that I wasn't doing anything. I was still reading. I was still educating myself. I was going to events, and I was getting ready. But I had learned that this way of doing, which is jumping from thing to thing to thing, was not going to work, right? So that's important to find out. And all of us have some strengths and all of us have some weaknesses, right? All of us, right? We were celebrating Lori's birthday today. Lori is incredible at getting a lot of tasks done that would take me forever. Yet there are a lot of things that I'm really good at that are very, very difficult for a lot of other people. That doesn't mean you are any worse than I am or I am any better than you are. We're all, at the end of the day, we got what we got. We have to deal with it and figure out what you're better at and what I'm better at, and then work on those strengths. So when we look at investor profile, second thing we want to know is, okay, where are you in terms of your credit? Is it good? Is it bad? Or is it indifferent? Meaning that you have never built the credit in your life, right? And a lot of people at one time in my life, right, in college, I signed up for a bunch of credit cards, and I wasn't buying stuff like stuff on it or going partying. I figured out how I was able to buy stocks on my credit cards. Not a very bright idea, but I literally had 22 or 24 credit cards, and I was basically playing the market with the credit cards. And I still remember I used to have to call the stockbroker because I'm picking stocks, and it was great until one day it was not, right? And so yet you're still responsible for the bills. And I realized that this shortcut that I tried to do to get to Mr. Successful was not going to work. And I realized that. So the question becomes this for you, what is it for you? If you are that person who is good and stable, chances of you succeeding at a high level are much better than somebody who's that quote-unquote entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs, guys, on the graves of 10,000 entrepreneurs, one entrepreneur rises that people maybe recognize, right? For every person that you see, quote-unquote entrepreneur that is successful, right? There's 10,000 that have failed. And it's not that there's anything wrong with failure. What I'm saying is this, that if you have to think about creating stability first. So the next question we ask is, hey, how's your credit? The next question comes up is, do you have any money or you don't? And if you don't have any money, meaning you may be a person, which a lot of us were at one time in our lives, which is whatever we earn in our lifestyle, we are basically expending all of that. Or like if I use a pointed example of Sephora, right? 2 kids, she's making about $90,000, or maybe at the time when she came to the first 3-day. It's not that she was wasting money anywhere, but by the time you take care of 2 kids, you pay a mortgage, you have other expenses, you're trying to live a good quality of life, right? And this is not doing any frivolous expenses. It's not that she didn't have money, it's just that at the end of the month and the not much money in the bank account kind of came at the same time. And a lot of folks are in that position. There's nothing wrong with it, but at least now you know that here's where I am. And it's a very hard thing to do. It's a very hard thing for me to admit that at times of my life, I was not able to make certain bills, right? It's not something, nobody likes to admit that and say, oh my God, I'm proud of it, right? Of being broke. But yet what we have to do in mastery is we're not asking that pointed question, hey, are you broke or not? We're asking, hey, do you have any reserves? Do you have a 401k? Do you have any money anywhere else? Now, based on that, we come up with a business profile. So what does that look like? Let me give you an example, right? What that would look like is this. So I'll use Faraz's example. I'll use another couple of different examples. So if we use, say, Faraz's example, at the time, she's 30-some years old, and 2 kids, has a full-time corporate job, right? And so the point to her was that, listen, Ms. Faraz, it's going to take you 6 and 6, meaning 6 years to build and 6 years to pay off. But if you follow this formula, I promise you, you will own somewhere around 18 to 20 houses that will be completely paid off, 100%. And every single month, you're going to have $18,000 to $19,000 in net income every single month, right? And the way you're going to go about it is you have $70,000 in debt, and that was college debt from an MBA. So we're going to put that aside. We're not going to worry about that for a second, right? You're going to basically, you got to keep your job. You have decent credit. Now you're going to start identifying properties. If you find a great property that is beyond your price range, you're going to either wholesale it or give it to somebody else and partner with it on a flip, where you're not financially responsible. Because you found the deal, you get a part of the profits, right? So now you're not financially on the hook, but because you've done the work of finding the property, now you have an opportunity to basically make money because you did that. Why? Because in her case, she could not take on things because she didn't have a lot of extra money. So it was kind of, you're mostly going to do rental properties, and you're going to do rental properties where you have a property that you can buy it, you can rehab it, you're going to borrow all of that money from outside, meaning private money. You're going to pay for it, rehab it. Can you handle $800 to $1,000 in payments a month? She says, yeah, I can handle that. Okay, great, no problem. So you have enough money, you have a little bit of money to be able to make those payments until you put a tenant in there. Once you have a tenant, you're going to refinance it, and now you're good to go. You're going to make $500 a month. So that's going to be your boring strategy. And then when the right flips comes along, guess what you're going to do? You're going to do either flips, or once you know how to start doing wholesales, when you learn that skill set, you're going to start doing wholesales. So she kept her job. On top of that, she started buying rental properties. As the flips came along and as the wholesales came along, as she's building up a rental portfolio, she started doing those on the side, not counting on this income. But guess what it did? That income from wholesales and flips helped her pay off her loan. She ended up doing about 30 or 40 of those at the time. And guess what it did? Created $300,000, $400,000 additional cash on this side. You have a full-time job still, so that's your bread and butter. You have a rental portfolio you're building on the side, and now you're able to be in a position where you are debt-free in terms of no credit card debt, no debt from school loans, and you're accumulating properties. Now, if we look back at her portfolio today, obviously, today, 50 plus properties, right? 30 plus thousand in net cash flow income every single month. Doesn't need to have a corporate job. Now she happens to run the entire mastery in terms of growth for us and being CEO for the business, right? But how about if we look at somebody else? So if we look at somebody else and you look at somebody that doesn't necessarily have even the kind of income Farah had, right? For them, they may have to look at, no, I'm going to have to do a little bit more wholesales first. I'm going to have to do 2 flips, and then I'm going to do 1 rental. Then I'm going to go back to 2 flips. I'm going to do 1 rental. So for me, the way I used to do it always, I used to do 3 flips for every 1 rental because I was doing real estate full time. I had quit selling real estate, which was a mistake. It would have been easier to sell real estate and do it on the side. Same thing as, say, Alexandria and Andrew from Mastery do. They're great Keller Williams agents, right? They sell a lot of real estate, and guess what they're doing on the side? They're accumulating properties, or doing some flips on the side. So they're playing that tango. And guys, what is important to understand is if you're not going to do that, right? If you're going to say, I'm going to quit what I do today, suddenly I'm going to get in real estate and I'm going to be a real estate mega millionaire. It's sad to tell you that guess what? You're probably going to be out of real estate, and you're going to be out of real estate soon. Because just to up and quit and say, hey, I'm just going to do this full time, unless you have a vehicle. You may be a leasing agent, somebody like Mark Goodman from Mastery. What does he do? He's a leasing agent, right? He doesn't sell fancy houses or anything, but he's doing hundreds of leases a year to all the properties that are owned out of Mastery. And so he can make a pretty good chunk of change. He can make a six-figure income just doing small little leases, but he has that system down where it's very, very time efficient for him. So the point of this talk today was this, that if you're going to start in real estate, before you pick a strategy, figure out what is your investor profile, right? Am I a busy professional? Am I a self-employed individual? Or am I that entrepreneur? And guys, there's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur. I come from that school of thought where at 14 years old, I was thinking about how to be a multimillionaire. But guess what? The only danger with those people is they tend to be a lot of time very dysfunctional because they don't want to work for anybody, right? They want to be their own boss. They don't want to basically serve to be the king. But in life, you have to serve if you want to be the king, right? You can't just go from zero to a hero. That only happens on the internet, and it only happens in the movies, right? You have to understand, hey, I may be great, I may have great ideas, I have this great ambition, I have this great desire, but I'm going to have to put a step-by-step process in place because that's how success is built. You look at anybody that truly has been successful and kept that over a period of time. They're not one-hit wonders. They're not overnight successes. They may have paid a price for years and suddenly they pop. But guess what? That years and years of grind, nobody sees, right? It doesn't matter if you look at a lot of the YouTube stars today, right? You look at Mr. Beast. I mean, this kid, since he was 10, 12 years old, was making videos. I mean, today, right, is the biggest channel in the world when it comes to making videos. People are like, oh yeah, man, I'd like to be like Mr. Beast, right? I mean, really? Right? The man has paid a price that you didn't pay. I certainly did not pay. And this is something that becomes important to understand, that what is my investment profile? What is the type of real estate that I'm going to do that fits my investment profile? Because I'm not going to do something just because other people are buying multifamilies. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what fits for me, what is the easiest for me, and where I can get to my goal the quickest. See, my goal in real estate was never to own a lot of houses. My goal in real estate was one thing. I hate being in the position that I was. I hated being in that position where all the time I was concerned and I was scared, where's my next commission check going to come from? If I'm out of town a week, if I take a vacation 4 days, I was just all the time stressed out. Oh my God, I'm missing some client calls. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Oh, what if the interest rates go up? What if they go down? What if I can't get a listing? And I hated that position. I hated being motivated all the time and every year ending up at zero, right? So my goal was, hey, if I can get to 2,000 or 3,000 in cash flow a month, then maybe I can get to 6. If I can get to 6, maybe I can get to 12. If I can get to 12, 20 and 40 and 50 and 100, right? There was a point that came that I'm like, do I have to show up? No. But the heck am I going to do? When am I the happiest? I'm happiest when I'm interacting with you. I'm happiest when I'm doing the 3-day. Why? Because I'm talking about what I love to do. It just happens to be real estate, and I love to share about it because that's the only thing I know how to do it, right? Because that's the only place I feel I can add value because this is a duplicatable, predictable process for you. So if you have any takeaway, the takeaway should be this. Number one, identify what is your investment profile. Number two, identify what is the type of real estate, be it starting with smaller homes and smaller properties that will help you build some cash flow, right? Or be it you may say, hey, I'm a busy professional. I just don't have the time, right? I have cash, like today. If you look at Mastery, if you look at Dr. Ali, you look at Miss Mary, you look at so many, hundreds of other lenders within Mastery that they are not buying as many properties. What they're doing is they have capital that they've earned by working in another profession. So they use real estate not necessarily from investing, but they use real estate in terms of lending so they can get a return. So it's important to figure out, who am I? What works the best for me? What is my age? What is my demographic in terms of where can I get the most return for the least amount of risk? And is this scalable? So hopefully some of those ideas, some of those thoughts made some sense. I know it's very tough in this short period of time to kind of go get into it at any depth, but we're certainly trying. Having said that, please have your friends or your family and other fellow investors that would like to be a part of this learning and growing experience, be a part of our Cashflow Investors. We're super thrilled, and we have a small prize for you that if you refer a bunch of people, we will draw somebody's name. And if you refer 10 people, you have 10 odds of winning. If you refer 20, you have 20. If you refer 2, that's what it is. So this time the prize is a flight for 2, $1,000 each in value, so up to $2,000. Hopefully you and your spouse go somewhere nice on the airlines on our dime. So great being a part of the community. Again, thank you for being part of Lori's birthday today. A big happy birthday to Lori. She just turned 29. And this is Andrew. Talk to you guys Friday.